Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gland Bodybuilding. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about strategic use of an exercise. Now, what a lot of people don't understand, especially the beginners and the intermediates, and some of the supposed advanced people. I just had somebody at the gym a few months ago tell me, hey, you don't know how to squat. This was a female powerlifter because she's squatting down to depth for powerlifting reasons, but not understanding that each person is built differently. And depending on where you want the growth to happen in your body will change your technique. And depending on how you are built will depend on how efficient it is or how proper it is for you to reach parallel depth in order to get the most out of the exercise. So case in point, I saw a guy squat 6 plates aside the other day on Instagram, and basically he hit depth. But for the last 6 inches of the movement, he basically had to bend over 70 or 80% more than actually coming down in order to get down to that depth. So basically what he was doing is turning the squat into a glorified deadlift in order to make sure that he hit depth. So he wasn't applying the strategic range of motion principle when it comes down to hitting the legs. If hitting the legs was his main goal, he would not try to fatigue the lower back long before the legs hit fatigue. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a depth that you can attain in the squat that concentrates all the tension and fatigue in the legs. But once you go beyond that, you start to recruit other muscles, and then they most likely will hit exhaustion before the other muscles are fully taxed. So it's a different strategy when you're training like that. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but it's a different strategy. You're not necessarily ensuring that your legs are getting exhausted and therefore stimulated into muscular growth and strength in some cases. This is why a lot of powerlifters aren't necessarily bodybuilders, because they're lifting some huge poundages, but what they're trying to do is recruit any muscle they can to lift that weight, but they're not necessarily concentrating that tension on certain areas. So if you want the legs to grow, you want to hit a depth that is in alignment with your own constitution so that you're not getting excessive knee pain or not getting a rounded back and so forth. But you're also making sure the fatigue is hitting the legs, not excessively on the lower back and other body parts, right? So the other reason why you want to also strategically assess an exercise is because, like I said before, your structure may not be suited to doing an exercise a certain way. So by going too deep in a certain exercise or going too low, you might just injure yourself or irritate the joints and not necessarily distribute the tensions on the muscles like you want. So when I say train the muscles, not the joints, I mean the joints are already getting trained, but you don't want to break the joints in the process of trying to gain muscle. So knowing that you're already putting wear and tear on the joints, you don't want to put excessive wear and tear on the joints as you're trying to stimulate the muscles. So another way you can assess this too is, let's say you're doing bench presses, maybe it's dumbbell bench presses, and I've seen guys stick the chest out and come down as far as they can in order to get that dumbbell press down. And then in order to get the dumbbells down deeper, they just rotate the shoulders, right? They're rotating those shoulders. So they're not getting any more chest involved in the movement. If anything, they're overextending the shoulders and bringing in more front delt. So of course, what I would say in this case is you come down as far as you can, where you still feel the tension on here, but once you need to rotate and bring the front delts in, that means you've gone too far down. So you've taken some of the tension off the chest to transfer it onto the front delts, and worst case scenario, onto the joint capsule itself in the shoulder, which you definitely don't want. And I've seen a long list of guys that went too low in the dumbbell presses and tweaked their shoulders pretty badly. So there's an advantage to keeping the tension on the main muscle groups and not overextending the joints. And one of the advantages is that you gain more muscle, first of all. And the second advantage is you stop injuring yourself unnecessarily or irritating the joints and causing the body to need way more recovery to recover from a workout than should be necessary. And of course, that's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is you just injure yourself. So when you use an exercise, think about where the tensions are. Think about when does the tension leave that muscle group and move into another muscle group? And second of all, really pay attention to when the tension leaves the muscle groups and then starts to transfer into the joint capsules or into the tendons or the tendon insertions. And I've seen a lot of people ignore this during exercises such as preacher curls. They'll mindlessly do the preacher curl and go all the way down and all the way up. And they're not feeling where those tensions are playing out. And of course, at some point, they start getting an elbow bursitis, or worst case scenario, they get a muscular tear in the bicep because they're not paying attention to where the forces are playing out. And slowly but surely, you can feel the forces. As you move down, they leave the bicep and they start to move closer and closer towards the elbow. And once they start to go into the elbow tendon, that's when you know you're in the danger zone, right? Not a good type of danger zone like Top Gun, but like bad danger zone. You know, the type that causes a problem. An Iceman isn't around to save your ass, although you might need ice after. So the whole point is to pay attention to where those forces are and make sure the forces stay, or the tension stays on the muscle. And once you start feeling it leave that area, then move the weight back up again. And you continue this with all your different exercises, and this way you avoid injury and increase the intensity on the muscles and ensure that you get the growth that you're after. This could work like an exercise band, I think. Almost. Yeah, I'm sure there's some practical use for this. Either way, if you want it, just send $20 to naturalglandbodybuilding.com and you can have this assortment of creative exercise technology that I don't understand yet. I've seen a million guys over the years train all the way up and all the way down and just mindlessly go through the motions, but not connect to what's actually happening. And of course, they'd end up with either no results or an injury or some sort of issue that develops because of it. And the last thing that people do when they're not paying attention to how to strategically use an exercise is that they'll go all the way up and all the way down, but they'll rest on the bottom. Now, not only does this take away a constant tension, which really assists with muscular growth and intensity on the muscles, but also what happens when you rest on the bottom, say in a squat, and you just rest on the back of your heels or whatever, and you're in that position. For most people, when you relax the muscles around the knee in that position with weight on your back, you're transferring all the stress onto the tendons in the knee, and at some point you're going to snap or cause some sort of issue. And you see this. I mean, you can see the accidents all over YouTube when people relax. And that goes for not just resting in the bottom position, but also resting in the top position, as you've seen with the leg press videos where the girl rests her legs at the top in a leg press and then her knee bends backwards. So you never want to rest the muscles when you have weight on the body. You want to keep them tense, keep the body tense to make sure the body is protected by the muscular tension. And that'll serve you in preventing injuries, but also increasing intensity on the muscles as well. And that way you get the overall growth that you're after. So yeah, whenever you do an exercise, just think about this. Think about, are you doing the exercise strategically, or are you mindlessly just going up and down or trying to achieve a form that might not necessarily be right for you because your body's telling you where those forces are going and they might not necessarily be going to the right place. Even though that same form might work for somebody else, it might not be right for you. So make sure you pay attention first and foremost and make your own body and what it's telling you the priority instead of just following everybody else and what they're doing. Mountain. So yeah, I hope this helps you out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalglandbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the Patreon supporters, and take care for now.